The story opens in 1962, where a grand Italian ocean liner named Antonia Grazia glides serenely across the open sea. The vessel brims with joy, laughter, chatter, and music echo through its elegant halls. Inside the opulent ballroom, a glittering celebration is in full swing. A stunning vocalist, Francesca, enchants the guests with her mesmerizing song. Couples whirl across the polished floor, glasses clink, and the atmosphere is alive with delight. Amid the lively crowd, however, a young girl sits alone, watching quietly. Spotting her solitude, the captain approaches with a kind smile and offers his hand for a dance. At that very moment, somewhere deep within the ship, an unseen individual pulls a lever. In a terrifying instant, steel cables snap to life, slicing through the ballroom with deadly speed. The cable slices through the entire ballroom, moving faster than the eye can follow. In the blink of an eye, every dancer on the floor is severed in two. The young girl, being shorter than the adults, miraculously survives as the wire whips just above her head. She gazes around in horror at the carnage before releasing a blood-curdling scream that echoes through the ship. The narrative then shifts 4 decades into the future. We're introduced to a veteran salvage crew commanded by Captain Murphy, along with his crew members, Muron, Greer, Dodge, Mundar, and Santos. Their line of work: reclaiming lost or derelict ships adrift on the open ocean. We first see them unwinding at a dockside bar, trading jokes and celebrating the success of their latest haul. That's when a weather pilot named Jack Ferryman steps in and approaches their table. Jack introduces himself to Captain Murphy, explaining, "Not long ago, I came across a massive ship drifting alone out in the open ocean. I tried making contact, no answer." He tells them the vessel was far from any established shipping route, floating in international waters. According to maritime law, whoever tows it in can claim the find. Intrigued, the crew quickly strikes a deal. Jack gets 10% of whatever profit comes from the recovery. He agrees without hesitation, and soon they're heading out to sea aboard their sturdy tugboat, the Arctic Warrior. Days pass on the open water before the radar suddenly detects a huge object. But something's off. The signal flickers, appearing and vanishing as though the mysterious ship were phasing in and out of reality itself. They scan the horizon, but the sea is empty. Not another vessel in sight. Confused yet determined, they press on through the fog. Out of the mist, a massive silhouette slowly takes form. The crew scrambles to reverse course, but it's too late. The Arctic Warrior collides with the side of an enormous ship. When the impact dust clears, Captain Murphy raises his flashlight toward the corroded hull and stops cold. Faded beneath layers of rust, the name reads, Antonia Grazia, the same elegant liner that disappeared 4 decades earlier without a single trace. They find no distress signal, no life aboard, save for Jack and Greer still on the tug. The rest of the team climbs onto the ghostly vessel, curiosity overtaking caution. The moment they step inside, the air grows thick and oppressive, carrying faint echoes that seem to move with them. As they wander the deserted passageways, they pass an antique clock, its pendulum swaying steadily, as if time aboard never advanced. But the instant Mundar reaches out to touch it, the pendulum stops dead, followed by a sharp metallic clang that reverberates through the entire ship, sending a chill through the crew. As they move deeper inside, the floor beneath Mundar suddenly collapses. He drops, but Muron grabs his arm just in time. While struggling to pull him up, she glances down the hallway and sees a young girl standing silently watching them. Before she can react, the girl vanishes into thin air. They finally haul Mundar to safety and continue forward. On the floor, they spot a digital wristwatch. The crew stares in disbelief. Such watches didn't exist 40 years ago. Captain Murphy frowns. "Someone's been here before us," he mutters. That watch belonged to them. They decide to tow the vessel back to port and return to the Arctic Warrior for the night. But Muron can't shake the image of what she saw. The young girl's face lingers in her mind. Jack notices her unease and asks what's wrong. She answers softly, "I saw a little girl on that ship." Jack gives a small, reassuring laugh. "You've been out here too long, Muron. The sea's just playing tricks on you." The next morning, the crew heads below deck to inspect the damage and makes a shocking discovery. The hull is full of holes, seawater steadily seeping through the cracks. The ship needs extensive repairs before it can be moved, so the crew agrees to get to work. Murphy estimates it'll take about 3 days to make the vessel seaworthy again. Everyone splits up to handle their assignments. While exploring, Muron finds herself in the ship's old swimming pool area. The place is eerily still. On the floor lie spent bullet casings and the walls are peppered with bullet holes. Alarmed, she starts to back away toward the exit, but freezes. At the far end of the pool stands the same little girl, silent and watching. Startled, Muron loses her footing, slips and hits her head against the pool's edge. A thin stream of blood runs down her temple, dripping into the still water. Just then Jack bursts in, grabs her and helps her to her feet, guiding her out of the room. As they leave, something unnerving begins to unfold. Dark red liquid seeps from the bullet holes in the walls. The pool slowly fills with blood and motionless bodies start to rise to the surface one by one. Elsewhere, Captain Murphy steps into what used to be the captain's quarters. On the desk before him sits a half-filled glass of wine, untouched but fresh as if someone had just left it there. Curious, Murphy picks up the glass. In the mirror before him, he sees the reflection of the ship's old captain drinking from that same glass. Murphy stops cold, stunned by the sight. At the same time, Greer steps into the main lounge, the very place where the elegant party had taken place 40 years earlier. He hears faint music drifting through the hall, Francesca's song, soft yet haunting. He looks around but no one is there. Yet Francesca now sits elegantly in the very spot where she once performed decades earlier. Elsewhere, Jack and Muron make their way down to the cargo hold, discovering rows of vintage luxury cars from the 1960s. While checking the crates, Muron pries one open, her eyes go wide. Inside are stacks of gold bars. Stunned, she calls for the others. The crew gathers, gazing in disbelief at the treasure before them. Excitement spreads quickly. They agree to take the gold, abandon the ship and head back to port. They start loading the gold onto the Arctic Warrior as Santos tends to the engines. While he works, an invisible presence slowly opens a propane valve without a sound. At that very moment, the ghostly young girl appears again, warning Muron in a trembling voice, "Don't start the boat." Before she can react, something pulls the girl violently back into the shadows. Unaware of the danger, Greer fires up the engine, and within seconds, a massive explosion rips through the ship. The Arctic Warrior is obliterated and Santos is killed instantly. Stunned and grieving, the remaining crew realize their only hope now is to repair the Antonia Grazza and use it to escape. While the others mourn Santos's death, Muron grows more determined to uncover the truth about the mysterious girl. She searches through old passenger lists and eventually locates the girl's cabin. When she opens the door, she gasps. A small skeleton hangs from the ceiling. Horrified, Muron stumbles back in shock. Meanwhile, Greer steps back into the lounge and suddenly the room transforms before his eyes. It's alive again, just as it was in 1962, filled with music, laughter and elegant guests dancing beneath glittering lights. The crowd cheers for him as though he belongs among them. Then Francesca appears, moving toward him with a seductive smile. She flirts playfully, drawing him in and leads him up to the upper deck. As Greer leans in close, her face hardens, and with a swift motion she shoves him from the ledge, sending him plummeting to his death. Elsewhere, Captain Murphy sits quietly in the captain's quarters, deep in thought. Suddenly, the ghost of the former captain appears before Murphy, offering him a glass of wine and handing over an old diary. Murphy opens it and discovers the terrifying truth. Decades earlier, the Antonia Grazza had rescued survivors from a sinking vessel called the Lorelei. Along with those survivors came crates filled with gold. But only one survivor had been found from the Lorelei. 2 days after bringing that survivor and the treasure aboard, the Antonia Grazza disappeared without a trace. The ghostly captain then shows Murphy a photograph of the lone survivor. When he sees the face, Murphy is stunned, frozen in disbelief. At the same moment, Muron stands in the girl's cabin, gazing at the small skeleton. She notices a locket hanging from its neck. As she lifts it to look closer, the ghostly girl appears once more. That's when Muron understands. The skeleton belongs to the girl herself. She died long ago, and what Muron has been seeing is her unrest spirit. The child speaks softly, "My soul and the souls of my friends are trapped here. The one who cursed us will never let us go, not until his collection is complete." Before she can say another word, a dark supernatural force suddenly floods the room. Terrified, the ghostly girl pleads with Muron, "Leave this ship while you still can." In an instant she disappears. Meanwhile, Murphy, now aware of the awful truth, rushes to warn the crew. But as he moves through the dark corridors, hallucinations consume him. He sees Muron as the ghost of Santos, sneering and taunting him. Overcome by panic, Murphy lashes out, attacking her. Muron fights back, struggling to break free, until Jack bursts in and pulls her to safety just in time. Thinking Murphy has lost his mind, the crew locks him inside a large empty fish tank to keep him restrained. Desperate to escape the haunted vessel, they decide to finish the repairs as quickly as possible. But Muron, still craving answers, ventures off alone to search for Greer. As she moves through the dim corridors, the ghostly girl appears once more. When the girl reaches out and touches Muron's hand, she is suddenly pulled into a vision of the past, transported back to 1962. Here the terrible truth is finally exposed. The lone survivor from the Lorelei, the man believed to be a victim, was actually the architect of it all. He convinced the Antonia Graz's crew to poison the guests and murder everyone aboard. Some passengers were gunned down near the pool, others torn apart by the steel cables, and even the little girl was hanged in her room, all in pursuit of the gold cargo. When the few crewmen left tried to secure the treasure, Francesca appeared and seduced one of the officers, commanding him to kill his comrades. Once he obeyed, she betrayed him, shooting him where he stood. And then the real villain steps out of the shadows. The man from the Lorelei releases a hook and strangles Francesca to death. When Muron finally sees his face, she freezes in horror. It's Jack, the same Jack who had led them to the ship in the first place. Panicked, Muron races to free Murphy from the tank, but she's too late. Jack has flooded it, drowning him. The photograph the ghost captain once gave Murphy floats beside his body. Heartbroken, Muron grabs it and runs toward the dock, desperate to escape. But moments later, Jack appears, acting as though nothing has happened. Muron stays calm, pretending she knows nothing. She tells Jack and Dodge to wait where they are, hands Dodge a shotgun and walks away. Moments later, a supernatural force seizes Dodge and crushes him inside a massive machine. Blood sprays through the pipes as Muron realizes he's gone. With no other option left, she decides to blow up the Antonia Graza, the only way to end Jack once and for all. Jack rushes to stop her, but suddenly Dodge appears, saying Muron told him to stay behind. Jack taunts him, calling him a coward, until Dodge fires. Believing Jack is dead, Muron starts the detonation sequence. But then Dodge steps from the shadows, his shape flickering and shifting, until he reveals himself as Jack. He smiles darkly and says, "I'm just like you, Muron. I'm a salvager too, but instead of ships I collect souls." In that instant the truth becomes clear. Jack isn't human. He's a demonic entity, cursed to wander the seas, drawing people into sin and claiming their souls for the abyss. Jack's real plan is exposed: to use the Antonia Graza as a trap to harvest more souls, continuing his endless cycle of death. He lunges at Muron, but she fights back with all her strength. During the struggle, she grabs a crossbow and fires, hitting Jack in the leg. He screams in pain and staggers, giving her a fleeting moment to react. Seizing the chance, Muron takes aim again, this time at the detonator. The arrow strikes true. A massive explosion rips through the ship, tearing it apart and blasting Jack to pieces. The shockwave hurls Muron into the ocean, sending her deep beneath the dark waves. As she sinks, the ghostly girl appears before her one final time. The girl softly points toward the surface, showing Muron the way out. The ship creaks and breaks apart, slowly sinking into the depths below. From within the wreckage, countless lost souls, including the young girl, are finally freed from their suffering, rising toward the light above. Muron drifts alone in the endless sea, clinging to a floating crate for support. Exhausted but alive, she watches as the Antonia Graza disappears beneath the waves. By dawn, a passing cruise liner spots her and pulls her from the water. Later we see Muron lying on a stretcher, being lifted into an ambulance, still dazed and weak. She glances toward the dock and suddenly freezes. Workers are loading the same gold crates she once saw aboard the Antonia Graza onto a new vessel. As the final crate is lifted, Jack appears, alive and unscathed, standing among the crew, silently watching her. Their eyes lock and Muron's face twists in horror as Jack turns and walks onto the ship. She lets out a scream of terror, realizing the nightmare isn't over. With that haunting final moment, the story comes to an end.